Reichman University.
Come to my hackathon, come, bo. I just for you hackathon, special deal, 20% off.
Startup Shuk. Exploring Israel's tech bazaar with Deo Arlo.
Welcome everyone to Startup Shuk. We are joined with Adam Lazovski from Dealigence.
Yes,
So, how are you?
I'm doing well. Nice studio,
Nice place.
good AC, nice people.
So, usually how we do it is we talk about yourself, how you are as a child. We talk about your upbringing. We want to know what you were like, what
Oh,
Adam
wow.
is like. And then we talk about diligence and lastly, like advice and experience for aspiring entrepreneurs here in Reichman so that they can learn from you. So, who is Adam? What is Adam like young?
Oh, wow. What is Adam like young? Probably a troublemaker. Never listened too much in school. Played a lot of competitive sports. I think that was kind of one of the things that really helped me till this day, right? When you play competitive sports,
Physical sports.
yeah, like competitive team sports. So you're not playing alone. It's like tennis, like soccer or volleyball. And I think one of the main things that I've gotten there when I was playing, I think it was the fourth grade, is we played in a team that was kind of in my region, and we sucked. Like, we were really bad. I don't know if you're familiar with the soccer, the way it works when you're young. It plays two teams, 7 versus 7, like in half field, right? So our team had about 7 good players, but you need 14, right? So the coach would always like split up 4 good players on one side and 3 good players on the other side, and eventually we would just lose on both sides. But I think that was a very transformative experience because I would train every week the best that I could just to go on a Saturday morning and then lose recurringly for like 30 games out of 35. And I remember the only time we actually won a game, so the first game we played against a team from Netanya, and we lost like 20-0, which is a lot in soccer.
Are you the good one or are you the bad one?
And I think I was one of the good players. I'm not sure, but I think. I played on the left side. The left side there are no lefties almost, right? So I left side defender, so it's a very rare position. So usually put in with the good team. And so we lost like 20-0 to that team, and they kicked our asses. They were like aggressive, physical, and we were just people from the suburbs. They didn't know how to play soccer. They played in like the neighborhood field. And we met them, I think, so you do 2 cycles every year. So we met them after like 4 months, and they played in our home field, and it was winter. And one side was flooded, right? So it was the first time we had a chance to play all 7 of the good players, and then we won 4-3. That was a cathartic moment. But I think the most important thing is that you lose every week, and you still do what you have to do, and you train as if you're not going to lose this Saturday. And I think that's the valuable lesson in entrepreneurship. Because you lose most of the time, right? All the time. You lose all the time, but you still keep the same enthusiasm going forward. You're doing another demo, you're doing another VC pitch, you're doing another employee hire. Doesn't matter if you lose, you have to keep training as if you're going to win this Saturday. So I think if I have to give myself a childhood story, that would be it probably.
I was also back, by the way, defender back. Usually I take the right position though.
Yeah, like only like a third of the people are lefties in their legs as well. So I don't know.
So how did your young self ended up in psychology in Reichman?
Psychology and law. I think because I think it's an interesting story. So why did people invent courts?
Yeah.
Because at some point, humanity just decided violence is not the way to resolve conflict, I guess. And I think psychology and law, when I came back from like a long trip in South America, I was thinking, what should I study, right? So kind of thought about who I am, right? I love people,
And this is after the army. So.
Yeah, this is after the army, after traveling for about a year and 2 months in South and Central America. And I remember thinking, I don't want to do just law, or I was really into psychology and doing something quantitative or something more rational. So I checked a few options, and then Reichman opened the psychology and law. I was the first year student, like the first batch of students there. And I was like, this is a good combination because I really like people. So psychology is kind of, I would say, the syntax of empathy. But with that said, sometimes people piss me off. So it's a good yin and yang, law and psychology, right? So even if you're going to class, it's like a joke that we had when we studied. Like if you sneeze in psychology, right? It's like the class will pause. Like where does this seasonal virus meet everybody, right? It's like people will say bless you, like 5 of them. Again, this is a stereotype, but if you sneeze in law, it's like, who croaked? Is it good for the grading system, right? Because it's always competitive, one against the other, right? Again, it's a bit generalistic, but I think it's very different mindset, right? And I think law has a different syntax than psychology altogether. It's like we'd be really different people when we met there, because we met the psychology people and then the law and government or law and business students on that side. And it was literally very different. I think that's interdisciplinary. That you used to be called before Reichman University, the Interdisciplinary
IDC.
Center.
Yeah.
So I think that was a very good representation of that. And I think that's it appealed to me before I started. It actually delivered when I was here.
Give us some stereotypes. Is it like good cop, bad cop, psychology and law?
I don't know, but I think it's, I would say, again, if you think about law in its essence, it's arguing, right? It's fighting in a civil manner, whereas psychology is about healing. Again, if you generalize really, really broadly, in law, you're here to debate and then make a decision based on rational claims. And in psychology, you're not here so much to rationalize anything. You're trying to understand and see how can we fix it. If I have to generalize, again, this is my perception alone, disclaimer, hope nobody gets offended.
Very interesting, very interesting.
So I think those are the main differences. The completely different syntax for that type of study.
And what led you to finally do entrepreneurship? Or what did you do, by the way, during like education? Are you building something on the side? Are you like doing some hustles?
So I think for me, Reichman was kind of an opening experience. When I got in here, I was like amazed by all the opportunities in the first year, like all the booths, all the clubs, everything. Yeah. And first year I didn't get into anything, literally. I mean, I got like a scholarship from like a center here, and I kind of worked with a high school student, I think, to help him come to do his homework or whatever. And then in the second year, I looked at the entrepreneurship club, and I met a few people during my studies, and this sounds interesting. So I joined as a volunteer, and then in the second year, this was before we had the Adelson Entrepreneurship School. So this was like the place to do entrepreneurship. There was no official building for that. And I really liked it. I like the atmosphere, I like the energy, I like the creation kind of spirit that go through everything you do here, right? People are starting programs to help people start startups or whatever. And I really dug the entire atmosphere and energy around that. And I met this person, his name, again, also volunteered in the entrepreneurship club. And we were like, we should do this like as a job. This is fun. I'm sure other people around Israel probably would need someone to help them set up these types of things. And that's where I met Uri. And in our last year as students, we started a company called Kidma Innovation, which essentially did what we did in the IDC Entrepreneurship Club as a service provider.
Kidma Diligence.
Yeah.
Kidma
Innovation was my first company before Dealigence. So essentially a services company that helps run entrepreneurship and accelerator programs outsourced. So, at our height, up to Corona, we pretty much worked with all the universities in Israel. Zell also contracted us to do a couple of sessions in SIP. It was great. It was a great company with like 12 employees, 8 freelancers. Awesome. COVID came, had to fire everybody. And after about a year into COVID, we decided to close it because I don't know if people remember this. This was like 4 years ago. But in the beginning of COVID, people were really, it was gloom and gloom. Like there was no hope, right? And then we waited for the first round of vaccines and essentially didn't do much for anybody. And then we're like, okay, let's close this. It's been enough. We've run this for 7 or 8 years. It's been a good run. And we closed that company. So that's, I think, how I kind of transitioned out of Reichman University directly into entrepreneurship. Second year started as a participant in the entrepreneurship club. Third year became a staffer or a volunteer in kind of the management. And we did a bunch of crazy things that year. I hope people at RU won't listen to this, but some really fun, some really things that you wouldn't imagine a university allowing you to do. Like we raised some donations to do like a TED We did a TEDx, and we raised about $100,000 to produce
Was it you?
So not just me, the entire team. I was kind of the CFO.
It was just a couple of years ago, right?
I think it was already like, no, it's like 2015. It was the previous TED, not the
previous
TED you
one.
just did, like the previous one. And we raised, I think, about $100,000 or $150,000. And RU just essentially let us do whatever we wanted to do in a very empowering manner. I was like, at some point I had to get a donation from Facebook. So I had to list Reichman University as a vendor in their vendor systems. And it says, point of contact, Adam Lazovski, position, second-year student. So I think how crazy is that? Facebook wired $8,000 to help us sponsor the TEDx. And I was the POC. I was a student. I'm not an official representative of Reichman University in any form, but the money wired and everything went fine.
How old were you back then?
27, I think, maybe 26. So I think that was a really cool experience. So I think that was very empowering. And I think that really what sets Reichman University apart from most college institutes that I kind of encounter is that you want to do something, here's the keys to the car, don't wreck it.
Just do it.
Just do it. Bring it back in one piece, and they trust you to do it. And in most cases, it really works out well. So I think did that, opened the company with a co-founder I met here at IDC, and that kind of catapulted my career. I canceled my legal internship. I didn't end up becoming a lawyer. Send them an email saying, listen, guys, I don't want to be a lawyer. And they're like, we understand. And then essentially I think that was my main experience here. I did a bunch of other programs like the Robin Leadership Program and a few other opportunities that were really, really kind of cataclysmic, not cataclysmic, but catalyzing my growth. So yeah, I think that without the Reichman, I don't think I would have a startup today, honestly.
And what was the most memorable bad thing that you did, like failure that you did during Reichman?
Failure during Reichman. Wow. I think, again, I don't think I have a specific point of failure. I think I have failed a couple of exams, but I don't think I had a specific failure associated with the campus, with my experience here. I mean, I didn't get into a bunch of things, but I don't see that as a failure. Maybe a short setback, but every time I literally didn't get into something or something didn't work out the way I had planned, there are so many opportunities here. Just something else that was more correct kind of opened up.
Just find another route. Huh?
Yeah, either another route or a better route. I've come to learn that there's so many ways, and usually the first way you thought about doing something to reach a specific goal is almost never the correct way to go about it. And if the universe says that this is not for you, you should listen.
And how did that lead you to finally finding your next startup?
So I was kind of in COVID, mourning my previous company. So people say that when you close your company, it's like you finally get the good night's sleep. I think for me, the experience was the opposite. I closed my innovation, and then for like 3 weeks, I couldn't sleep. Like my hands were tingling. I didn't know what to do. And I thought to myself, I had this concept in my head. I've been doing this like ecosystem thing for about 8 years. People are like corporates were paying me to help founders, to help investors, to help service providers. I was running the acceleration programs. And there are so many, I could see like the boat, and I could see where all the water was leaking. And I thought to myself, this needs to be solved with technology. And I had this concept in my head that maybe we should everybody knows this, that raising money is an awful experience. From end to end, right? Starting from understanding what you need to raise, who you need to raise from, like doing the research, that's really painful. That's like 300 hours of work. And ultimately in the sales process itself, right? You have to create FOMO and demand and so I knew there are so many pain points around that, and I knew founders aren't good customers, and that's fine. But I was like, let's do something that helps them, and let's see if it works. So I got engaged, and I was like, during those 3 weeks, I was not sleeping because they didn't have a company. And I said to myself, you have to plan a wedding when you get engaged, and it's like a whole logistical thing. You have to open a bank account with your spouse, like future wife and whatever. So I said to myself, we're going to open a bank account on Sunday, and I'll start looking for co-founders directly after that, like a big life step, right? And then I'll start looking for co-founders. I have 6 months until I get married. So I go to the bank, and I have this awful experience, right? I set up an appointment ahead of time at 9 a.m., and I get to the bank at 5 minutes to 9, and there's no one there. I sway it around to like 9:15, and finally somebody comes up to me. I'm trying to look for people. Right? Everybody's in their desk, and I'm like, I had an appointment, And then the person tells me, oh, you had an appointment. Why didn't you say so? And I told her, I made an appointment. That's me saying so online. And she was like, all right, sit down here. And then I was sitting there with my then fiance, now my wife. And we are just waiting for like 45 minutes to this person to print out paper and have us sign it. And then at some point, he got my wife's surname wrong on the credit card, which is, she already had a credit card with that bank. You literally have to copy paste from one terminal to the other.
Right.
And we ended up being there for like an hour and 45 minutes. And I went out of the bank and I was furious. And the first thing I did, I called my cousin, because my cousin, I remember at that point, was employee number one in one of the new banks, being kind of featured at that point. It was still in stealth. Now it's out. It's called Ash Bank. And it was employee number one there. So I called him up and I said, Gil, listen, you have to help me fire my bank. And he was like, interesting you called. I just quit 6 weeks ago. I'm doing my whole great resignation thing. Remember in COVID, everybody did like the great resignation. What are you up to? I'm like, let's meet. I want to start a startup. And that's how I found my first co-founder, which is essentially the luckiest you can ever be in your life. Like the first call you do, you find a co-founder.
It's your brother.
It's my cousin.
Your
My
cousin.
cousin. He's like a few years younger than me. Front-end developer since he's like 14. Product manager. Did like 3 years at Wix. Got poached by his boss to join Ash Bank as the first employee. Very capable person. And that's essentially how Dealigence got started.
By the way, do you want to give that bank a shout out?
No, I don't. There aren't that many banks in Israel, right? You get in trouble. I still have my account there. But yeah, I prefer not to mention people that gave me bad service. Anyway, so did that. And then that's essentially, I would say step one in creating the company. We did a few things. We did some research. We did a couple of experiments. I think the interesting realization was that the way to fix all those leakages that we saw is by helping the different stakeholders make better decisions. And the way to make better decisions, and this is 20, now everybody is ChatGPT, everybody data. But back then, end of 2021, we're like, we need to give people better data and better analytics. And it's not just analytics. It needs to be refined all the way, not to a recommendation, but to something that they can make tangible steps after reading it. I don't know if you call it an insight or an actionable insight or whatever, but they need to be served with the information in a form that is not judgmental, but enables them to understand very clearly, if they proceed in each direction, what would that mean? So I think the first thing we did was to help entrepreneurs understanding fundraising is such a crappy process. We just created a graph showing which investors invest with whom. Really nice, really light. It kind of feels like a game even. You go into an investor page, you see his last 3 investments, you see who he invests with, you get like the AUM, when they make their last investment. So basically what a founder would need to understand whether this is a good VC to approach, could he or she lead my round, etc. And when we kind of had that in mind, we realized if we're going to build a data company, we need somebody who knows how to manage and make a lot of data work at scale really fast. So that was the point where we decided to find another co-founder, a CTO. We did it in a sprint fashion. We had 48 hours to think about anybody we can reach out to. We lined up about 6 potential prospects. We met with all of them. 2 we really liked. We did like 2 or 3 more meetings, and then we decided to continue with Yaniv, who I met through my previous company. He was a graduate of one of the programs that we did. So that's how we established the team. And this was really late 2021. We started dating, if you will. Next step was to create an MVP of our joint work.
Quick question on the co-founder. Do you prioritize skill or do you prioritize like, trust and previous history with the person?
I mean, it all needs to make sense. It's not like most people, I don't know, I am not familiar with the situation where somebody is looking for a co-founder and there's like a pipeline of dozens of people who just want to co-found a company with him, right? Because it's usually just not the case. So history is great. If you have it, you can create it. Diversity of skill. I mean, if you bring 2 non-technical people to start a technology company, it's going to be more challenging. If you ask me about what's, in my opinion, kind of the perfect core team, the perfect core team should be able to be almost completely independent, right? Because we have 3 people. Gil can do the front end, can do the product, can do design, can even do like banners for LinkedIn if I need it, or like even a short video. And Yaniv can do everything that has to do with backend, AI, machine learning, everything on that. And I can talk, which is what I do. And like do invoices and sales and whatever, but whatever a CEO does. So I think we are a very independent team. And I think that enables you to move way faster. If you're just a CTO and a CEO, and then you're doing something that's even remotely close to a B2C or UI experience is important, it's going to be hard. You're going to have to get somebody to help you do it, usually. Because I don't believe in real full stacks. You either like backend more, you like frontend more.
Right.
You either do pretty things or you can do complex things. Again, generalizing, hopefully nobody gets offended. So we had a very independent team that can do pretty much everything. And I think that was a big bonus. It enables us to run faster. Once we talk about present day, I'm sure it will manifest on why. So yeah, that's the founding team story. Thanks to a bank, I created my co-founding team.
And Dealigence basically helps founders understand their VCs. Do you make a product to help like the other way around?
So I think we started with that. So the way it worked, we created that graph. It was really nice to look at and it moved really well. The data wasn't that incredible. And we released it on LinkedIn.
You just scrape data from the internet.
Yeah, we just scraped something, whatever we could find, and really fast. And we released the product in 6 weeks. 4,000 people landed in 36 hours and like 600 people signed up.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah, that's very good. With no media at all. I just did a
Right.
post on LinkedIn.
Wow.
I was sitting in like a WeWork for free, obviously at a friend's office. And the WeWork we were sitting in is all, when you walk into the lobby, everything is like glass doors. You see into other people's offices.
This is one in Tel Aviv, yeah?
Yeah, there's a bunch of them. We were Toha. And then I went out from my office into kind of the lobby and I saw somebody from the corner of my eyes using Dealigence in real time. I released the product 45 minutes ago and somebody in my floor was using it. I think that was kind of an incredible experience. At that point, I said, all right, this is a good team. We're onto something. It's probably not this, but we should move forward as a team and start really thinking about what to do. So I think we started with a problem space, realized founders are not good customers. They're seasonal, very specific. I wish I had a solution that could make them recurring customers. But slowly and steadily, we started moving our focus, I would say, to, let's say, post-seed investors. Today, we serve pretty much anybody who's interested in equity in a technology company. But we started transitioning into decisions of people who buy and sell equity in a technology company or, let's say, a digital native company. And the realization was that they are missing real-time performance data about a company. Right. If you are an investor or a secondary buyer or even a limited partner investing in a GP that has an asset class of companies and you want to understand how the companies are doing right now, you can't. Right. You go on whatever source you have and it tells you when this company raised money, how much from whom. That's not a time series. It gets updated every 18, 24 months, 12 months, whatever. It doesn't really tell you what's happening in this moment.
So the companies don't periodically send like data to the...
I don't collect manual data, first-party data from anybody. We can talk about why. It's very technical, but first-party data is really, really hard to validate, easy to manipulate, and you need to get them to do it in a consistent manner.
True.
Why would you? You're a startup founder. Why would you tell Adam how your company is doing every month?
Yeah.
You won't. Unless I give you a very big incentive, which if you tell me what it is, I'll do it, but I haven't found one. So I think that's the challenge there with first-party data. But in 2024, there's enough digital footprint to understand how a company is doing in real time, either through proxies or either through looking at things that change all the time. So a company's workforce, a company's product adoption, a company's social media and like marketing assets, how are they performing over time? If you take a snapshot every 21 days, the change and the values changing, because the change and the values changing is not the same thing, that tells you a lot about the company. And we use Dealigence today, and I look at a company and I see everything that's happening there just by looking at their dynamic data, which really correlates to performance. We can even estimate how much money, like how much recurring revenues they have, with actually not that bad of a certainty. So I think if you look at the dynamic data and you kind of process it, because you can do it manually, right? If you process it really well and the tools exist today and the technology exists today, you're actually able to understand how a company is doing, and you can even use that to create trust within your decisions. Even sometimes we know things even CEOs don't know about their company.
Really?
Yeah, because
Can you
once
give
the
an
company
example?
gets like 100 people old, they don't remember how many engineers they might have at every given second. and they streamlined the company. They had to let a few people go. They won't necessarily voluntarily say which left, on why, and how much. It doesn't work that way.
Makes sense.
Right? It's a landscape that is private. Private is obscure by default. If it was completely transparent, it would be like the public markets, and then creating returns that are really, really beyond the S&P would be extremely hard.
Yeah.
Yep. So I'm assuming you have some follow-up questions.
No, that's very interesting. It reminds me of the U.S. government using like satellites to see the oil and gas levels in the tanks of other countries. That's very true, I guess. You have to monitor it not from first party.
I mean, you can do first party, but you have to have a real system and real incentive as to why they would put this information and have quality checks in place. And it could be done, I'm assuming, if we create a value proposition for the companies as to why they should put in their data, assuming they would. They do in some places, in our competitors. Is it in high quality, high detail, showing some information that we think is relevant? I don't know. But we'll figure it out. We'll do it better than they do.
And what's Diligence planning to do in the next 5 years?
5 years? Well, I don't know what I'm doing in Q4 of next year. But listen, I think the entire landscape of deal making is changing. Private and public. Technology companies and everything happening online moves too quickly to just have investment professionals continuously set up catch-ups and meet with the management and founding teams and investors to collect the performance data and log it into their CRM, have it go outdated within 3 or 4 weeks. So I think the entire process of gathering, collecting, analyzing, structuring, and let's say distilling data is going to completely change, I would say in the next 2 years even. And we want to be that company. We want to be the dynamic data company, which is essentially the data that matters. Because when a company was founded, who the founders are, what they do, that never changes. It's a commodity. Everybody has it. It's like a Wikipedia of companies. Think about what if Wikipedia was real time and live all the time. So I think that's one avenue. And the second thing is kind of, I don't know if you ever used the CRM or a data research company, right? Like a PitchBook or something. You pay a lot of money to get these tools. And at the end of the day, you feel like you work for them. When you use Diligence, it works for you. You still have to set it up. But let's say you create a market sensor. Like I want to look at all the seed companies who are starting to commercialize. Poof, you get it into your inbox every week. Every company that started commercializing, we just push them into your inbox and tell you, hey, Dio, here are the companies. And that's just one example. There are so many workflows that I have to do and that are so manual, so painful. So you either miss out on opportunities or you incur a bunch of risk. I can make the case as to why it would be extremely hard for a fund managing 100 billion people with 2 partners, an associate, and an analyst, to have enough time to properly create due diligence, like due diligence specifically on a company they're looking to invest in. A, B, C, D, whatever round you want. And I think we can fix that. So if you ask me what's my vision, everybody knows about the power law in VC, right? Which is technically 2080, but in reality it's more like 595. I'm not saying there's not going to be a power law, but think about a reality where the power law, instead of being 95 to 5, would be 92 to 8 or 93 to 7. Just think about one more company per country that becomes huge every year.
Yeah.
In addition to what we already have.
That's huge.
That's insane, right? If you do it in a few years, time after time, that changes the global economy. I mean, in my 8 years in Kidma Innovation, and this is where all the story, I think, comes together, I've seen so many great founders who ended up not raising money. And you can say, if you can't raise money, you're not born to be in this game. I'm not sure I agree with this statement, right? Founder knowing how to raise money from investors does not mean that he would be a good founder or not, or a good business person or will start a great company. It's an important skill in today's landscape and how we view it. And on the other side, I see so many great fundraisers who have no idea what they're doing and would be terrible CEOs or terrible co-founders raise money. So I've just seen this firsthand. And I think that if we can impact that decision-making, specifically post-seed, right? If you're raising an A round, your product or technology is going to reach the universe, either because you succeed or it gets copied or you get bought, right? A round investors essentially determine, if you like parentheses, they determine which products and technologies will reach the market.
Right.
Because in seed, you technically don't have anything. But if you raise an A round, you're supposed to have something. And if you raise that A round, your vision, at least to an extent, is going to be consumed by everybody. It's going to be on my phone somehow. Again, if you're going with software or whatever. So I think that's where we want to be in 5 years. If we can change the power law a tad, I think that would be an awesome achievement.
Let's rewind a little bit. When you first released in WeWork, and a lot of people are using it. That's an incredible story experience, I'm sure. Tell us a bit about the story, like what the product was like back then. You know, it's an MVP, and how did you finally know you got to release it, and how come you get a lot of this traction? I presume it's a lot of your connections. What's the story?
So I think founders, though they're not good customers, they're good promoters. If you have a free product for founders and it actually works and it's nice, they will recommend to their friends. They have high connectivity. And we looked at all the tool sets in like the area, and we found a few things. One, it looks like software from 1995, very table structured, no design, nothing visual, no visual data. So that's the first thing we identified. Two, they're slow. Takes time to upload a page. You wait a few seconds. I don't know if you used, like you can go on the library and try to use PageBook or CapIQ or whatever. You might wait 3 seconds for a page to load. And three, it doesn't have, I would say, a rewarding experience of usage, right? It's not like a game. Not saying we created a game, but we created something that you can just kind of mindlessly use, even if you want to. I mean,
The graphs were fun. I
yeah,
tried
like
it.
you just click and you put the dot here, and then you scroll it around. Like we see people on the Hotjar, just playing around, right?
That's
Just
genius.
moving the
That's
mouse.
genius, by the way. Like,
Yeah,
you want a product that people can also play with, not just like use.
It needs to be fun. It needs to be nice.
Yeah.
So I think our emphasis on the MVP was, hey, let's do it for founders. This cuts, 200 hours of research for free. Just sign up so we know you're a human. That's one. And two, make it really, really nice looking. Nothing that existed in that time was really nice looking. And make it somewhat like you can do some fun with it. We added some Easter eggs, like if you we did some Easter eggs that you can find some like codes and whatever. We made it fun. And I think I just did like a WhatsApp message to a bunch of all the founder groups that I worked in, and people I think wanted to help me specifically, and they used it, and then were like, all right, this is nice. People don't recommend things that aren't actually nice.
Yeah.
And I think founders that used it and kind of recommended it were so happy somebody built something nice looking for them. Because none of that existed. And I think that's what created kind of the initial traction. I think on the first 24 hours, I got like 60 emails. About 45 or 48 of them were like, thank you, man, founders. And about 12 hate emails, mainly from investors saying, hey, my data here is wrong. And they were right? We should have fixed it. And we fixed it immediately. Some of them were just really, really immature. I'm the best investor. How come I'm not on the first page? I'm like, listen, man, this is the algorithm. This is how it works. Yeah, but I'm the best, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I mean, if you don't show up on the first page in Google, you don't call Larry Page, right? Not that we're anywhere near that, right? But I mean, this is how it works.
Yeah.
You can challenge our logic on why we think you should be first if you've made the most investments in the last year. The product is for founders. They want to know who's the most active person. So if you haven't made a bunch of investments in the last year, you're not going to show up first. So I got about 12 hate emails like that, like people being pissed off. The vast majority of them was right, maybe besides 2 or 3. But that really showed me that people cared.
And you only posted this in LinkedIn and WhatsApp.
Yeah, with some friends, yeah.
You don't post it in Hacker News or Product Hunt.
No.
That's insane.
No, doing a product hunt is like a 4 weeks project if you want to do a good release. Because if you want to release on product hunt, you want to be ranked first. And we wanted to do this sprint in 6 weeks. My time was up. Like, let's see what happens. And we created the metrics. Like, 100 people sign up. That would be great. We ended up having about 6x. But I think it was primarily for us to understand that as a team, we can work well and we create something of value. The product still exists on our website. It's still free to use, but it's not the core of our value proposition at this point. We shifted to understanding that we need to provide better data and dynamic data to people who are interested either in investing or buying technology companies. So today, our customers start from the government of Israel and maybe another government soon to private equity, LPs, growth, early stage, secondary buyers, secondary platforms, family offices. Even a company uses us.
For governments, as in like they're looking into which start to give grants or stuff like that.
So that's one use case. The other use case is to actually research their entire industry.
Okay.
So the use case that we do is like how many R&D developers are in Israel
Right.
hired by Israeli startups. Do you know? I know, they know. But a government usually doesn't know. Now they do.
Yeah.
So they can do a few things that have to do with like economic policy that I think are very interesting. Let's see. It's new. Let's see how it turns out.
Do you charge them the most, governments?
Do I trust them?
Do you charge them the most?
No. Like I charge everybody pretty much the same, besides for like the first maybe 3 or 4 customers. Nobody got a free design partnership with us. Because if people don't pay, they don't have skin in the game, they don't care. Like when I hop on calls with like investors, it's funny. One of the first things that comes up is that we're a profitable company. And they're not used to that. Right? Even software vendors who sell to investors, if they're startups, they have a runway. We don't. I think it creates a different level of conversation, that creates more trust, because they're not thinking, we're going to pay these guys $50K a year and then they're going to shut down in 6 months and then how do I get my money? So it creates more trust. Because I don't have any VCs in my cap table, it creates even more trust because I'm neutral.
You bootstrap the whole thing.
So it was an interesting time. So we raised a pre-seed at the end of Q3, let's say early Q4 2022, sorry. So about 2 years ago. And we were thinking about doing like the VC route. We were just getting sobered up from the free money 2022, 2021. And then on October, I got called in for reserve duty. And I know it's like a cliche, but I literally had emails scheduled for October 8th to go out and start my next round, my seed round. So I obviously that stopped. I go on reserve duty for about 3 months. I come back in like January 2024. I don't know if you remember. Not a lot of checks were signed. Maybe, I don't know. But I felt like there wasn't any momentum for me to raise that round. So, and on January 10th, my co-founder was like, listen, the platform is ready. We had some revenue because we did some API deals, like small ones. And I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's try to sell this baby and hopefully we'll get enough revenue to kind of sustain the company because I'm not seeing any fundraising. I mean, I can do 4 months of trying to sell my equity or just sell this product and hopefully we'll reach the same situation. And forward like 6-7 months till today, the company is cash flow positive. So that was a good bet. And now let's see what happens with us being, I don't know, in venture capital world, you're not supposed to be cash flow positive at this stage.
Right.
But if I can make the case that we can sustain the same speed of growth without being, burning a lot of cash for too long, maybe it would be an interesting opportunity for other investors. I don't know. We'll see.
You said founders are great promoters, so that contributed very well to your launch. Do you think things would happen differently or perhaps better in hindsight if you had started not as a product to founders, but to VCs?
For sure, because I knew a lot more founders than I knew VCs at the time.
So you think it's better like to go to this founder first route when you launch?
I don't know if you go through the founder first route. I went through where I thought I would get honest feedback and traction to begin with, right? You want to play to your strength starting on. So when all the founders were logging in and using, ultimately investors started noticing as well. Because the post exploded. It got like, 150 comments and like 25,000 views, which is a lot for my page. I don't know if it's a lot in general, but it's a lot.
For LinkedIn, it's huge.
It's a lot for my page, and I think it's big. So I think they start getting a lot of traction. All the investors came in. So I think even if they didn't like the data that was presented about them, they respected the product and the way it was executed. I wrote on the post, it's an MVP, nobody read it. So that's why I got all that hate mail, because I was like, listen, guys, I'm sorry, we did this in 5 weeks. Like, it will get better, I promise. And I think people kind of knew that page. And even until today, which our graph is not like in the mainstream discussions of everybody, when I come up to an investor, I remember your product. They used it like when you started it. Yeah, so that kind of creates an talking about psychology and what I learned here at Reichman University, the familiarity effect, right? They saw me in the past, and they saw what we had then, and now when they hop on a demo with me right now, I think they're impressed about what we've built with 3 people. So I think that created a lot of familiarity that kind of softened the transition into that market. So we started with founders because that was our intuition about where we think there's a pain point we need to solve. We transitioned into helping financial institutions, I would say, and governments, because we understood that's where the way to solve the problem actually is. Because we can help founders all day long, but if the investors, we can't help them make more data-informed decisions, it's not going to matter. So I think that's why we transitioned there. The start with founders was good to get that recognition by investors as well. And so, like everything, was a fluke of luck.
So the idea you start with doesn't have to be the final thing you work on. You got to start. You just got to start, and then it will transform and morph over time.
Yeah, I think it just had a good grasp of the problem of fundraising. So it was really easy for us to create a product around it really fast. So I think that was the advantage. If you want to, and we did it to date as a team to see that we work well together. So I think that, I mean, I would separate the dating project, if you will, from the actual company that you're building. Technically, this could have been.
It was one.
Yeah, not really. Like if you think about it, a product for founders has nothing to do with a product for investors. It might use the same data. It might be in the neighborhood, but there are companies who do technically or similar to what we did in our first phase, and there are companies who do what we do today. Our competitors, not as well, not as pretty, whatever. I respect my competitors, so I think it's a different company, but we learned a lot, and again, that was luck.
Amazing. Advice for aspiring entrepreneurs who want to start.
Wow. I mean, I'm trying to say something that's hasn't been said so many times already. I'm going to talk about, we're in Reichman University, so I think I'm going to talk about the operator muscle, not so much starting a startup. I think going from somebody who works in a company to a startup founder is way harder than if you have some independence like side projects. Right? When you have a side project, it enables to you to create a new muscle that you usually don't have if you're working for a company. So even if you're a student or you're working in a big corporation or a small corporation, it doesn't matter. Having that, because when you have a side project and you take it seriously, you work on similar muscles. You have let's say you have a blog. You have a publishing schedule. You have people who read it. You're committed to them. You have to be good at what you do. You have to create good content. You have to do it recurring. You have to be in a schedule that's committed to your users or customers. And I think if you ask me what's the best thing to do if you want to start a startup someday, is start training that muscle that is being an independent or an owner, if you will. So I started by being like a freelancer. That was my first thing in the fourth year. I started doing freelance with the person I met here at Reichman University. And then we started a services company. We scaled it. And then I created a startup company. The startup company, the odds are stacked highest against you as a co-founder. So at least win in, it's like going to play basketball directly in the NBA. If you have some time, play in your home court, play in the neighborhood, play in your national league, and then go to the NBA. Because I think it brings you more prepared to the game, being an owner before you start a startup. So that's my advice. Just build something and make $1. So earn $1 doing something. Let's see if you can create something somebody will pay for. It sounds easy. It isn't. If you can come into the startup life having generated $1 in customer value, I think you're in a different starting point than most people. That's my best advice. I don't think I can get anything better than that.
I mean, it sounds very good. I think generally it's very similar to what other founders I've invited here before. Start something. You just got to do it. Just got to start.
You don't even need co-founders, even though it's a different muscle. Think about it. Co-founders are a social structure where everybody's equal. I mean, technically the CEO is the last word, but no CEO in a co-founding structure enforces a decision on his team.
Yeah.
Where do you practice that? Nowhere. You play soccer, there's a coach, there's a captain. You have a role. You work for a company, there's a boss. At university, technically you do group projects. But if you don't like your group, you just do it on your own and then you submit it and everybody gets an A. There's no place, no social structure that really makes you work in a co-founding team social structure. Everybody's equal. Everybody has different roles and responsibilities. The overlaps change every day. And then you have to create something that's incredible. And all the odds are stacked against you. It's let's say, a social structure that you don't practice anywhere. Most people, when they start being co-founders for the first time, they're not good at it. Not because they're not good people, not because they're not good team members, because you haven't practiced it anywhere. Which is why I think group projects in university, if you take the group dynamics aspect as the learning opportunity, not necessarily what you work on, provide a lot of value.
That's a good point.
But most don't, unfortunately.
So if you're a student in university, just start something. Just build something.
Start something, and when you do a group project, try to make it feel like a group project that everybody is actually like co-founders.
Right.
It's going to be hard. You have to choose your group correctly, and that holds true to co-founding a team as well.
Prioritize learning, working with people, and actually building whatever it is. Cool. So, Adam, if people want to learn more about Dealigence, where can they go?
www.dealigence.vc. Diligence like deal. because it's deal, it's intelligence, it's due diligence, it's a lot of things encapsulated into it. You can shoot me a note on LinkedIn, Adam Lazovski.
Amazing. Adam, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
As well.
Come to my hackathon. Come. Bo. I just for you hackathon. Special deal. 20% off.
Startup Shook. Exploring Israel's Tech Bazaar with Deo Arlo.
All our shows and podcasts available online on our website and on all podcast platforms. Search Audioversity.